Out in SCUM, in the horror version, June 27th, 2011. Part of the Ethical Times. This is your host, Dr. Vicky. Adding SCUM. Horror version, what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about a horror story that I walked upon. My husband, when he left the home, took whatever he could from it and either threw it away or gave it away. And there was no protection of any of the things that I had worked and saved for 30 years. It was gone. Vanished. Poof. That was part of his sadism. In psychopathic behavior, there's patterns that you find. And this ex-guy had this pattern when he was head in rock and roll music, and he flipped out and he wasn't going to be in rock and roll music anymore. He took a hammer and bashed his new beautiful Porsche in. Then he went farming, and then when he wasn't going to do farming anymore because he's going to move on, he burned all the cornfields and destroyed all the crops. So he has this pathological behavior. And so when the divorce, he's not going to be married anymore, then everything was to destroy the family, me, and the children to the best of his ability. Patterns. Psychopathic patterns. Well, these patterns play out in many ways, and this will be several segments of this outing SCUM, this horror movie story. So in having to leave the home after the fire, oh my goodness, arson fire, I wonder how that ever happened. I wonder who could be doing arson fire at my house to destroy the evidence I had. I wonder who would do that. After the arson fire and packing up to move, there's a big file cabinet that he left, and it was all locked up, and I opened it, and there it was. Oh, I'm the poor attorney guy. I never do anything to anybody. File after file of lawsuits with all of his partners. File after file after file, where he sued every one of his partners so he could get all the money. He was the partner suing kind of guy who did, smiled and was the good guy, and then next thing you know, you're being sued and your rights to the property or whatever the business deals were gone, and he got it all. And in that file, I found letters between X and Peter Straub, the horror writer. And it was like they were talking about this woman, Carol. Oh, Carol this, oh, Carol that, and then Robert, carried on. So it was on that old tissue paper, that blue tissue paper, to send airmail things to Europe. It was blue tissue paper. I remember that really vividly. So the woman's name was Carol Smith. And as I read it, I got very sick, and I had to go in and throw up. Carol Smith had found Peter Straub. Peter Straub and his family, his new young family, were in the United Kingdom, and Peter had gotten a job there to teach and write, and that was pretty cool. And this woman, Carol Smith, thought, like, oh, Jesus, I found this really cool writer. I'm going to make him famous. He's going to be a horror writer. He's going to be so cool. And she got into this, and she actually promoted him, and she was the one who founded Peter Straub and actually boosted his career and made it happen. And it happened in the United Kingdom. That's where it first happened. Now, my ex and Peter Straub were friends earlier on in college, and even beyond, earlier than college, at their country day school in the Wisconsin area. So they were buddies, and they'd been through a lot, and drinking and palling around. So there was writing in this about how they were going to break the contract with Carol Smith, and X was going to take over the contract and X was going to become the new agent for Peter Straub. And that was the plan. And they were going to work this out together. This is like Gaslight the movie, you know. X was into Gaslight the movie, and he had to replay it through his whole life with women. He replays Gaslight the movie. Any woman out there is going to replay it. Unless you're a prostitute, then all you can do is beat him or he'll beat you. That's the other game that he plays. But those are the only two games he knows. He doesn't know any other games. Those are his games. So there it was, the writing of these two men plotting to bring down this woman, Carol Smith. Oh my God, this is real horror. This is reality horror. This is true horror. That this would be a plot and a plan. Now, my ex and Peter Straub and everybody, well, mostly everybody, never really get the concept that I'm a bioethicist and I'm really functional on doing ethical acts and ethical issues and learning and trying to do my best. They really don't get that, but that's really what I do. So it took me nothing to find Carol Smith. Stay tuned. You want to know what I found out from Carol Smith. Part 2 on this horror version, which includes Peter Straub and Carol Smith. This is a New York version. This is for everybody in New York. This is for you talkies in New York.